All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Uplink. Really excited to have the team from Hoopo here. I've got Tal, Elon, and Marco here to talk to us about what Hoopo is doing in the asset tracking industry. So Hoopo is an international tracking solution that offers complete visibility across operations. They empower things such as aviation, transportation, and waste management, and allow informed business decisions to be made and streamlined operations, cost saving decisions, things like that. So thank you to Hoopo for being here, and let's get into it. So quick agenda. My name's Jacob Swin. I'm the product marketing manager here at Helium. Almost forgot that part. Very important. I'm going to talk a little bit about what Helium is, how we started, what we do, then a little bit about how Helium and Hoopo started working together, and then I'm going to hand it off to the Hoopo team to go through their intros, overview of the company, and some use cases and demonstrations. And for the last 10 minutes or so, we'll get into some Q&A. Please feel free to drop questions in the chat as you think of them, and someone from the Hoopo team may be responding in the chat as well. Otherwise, we'll pull those at the end. So any questions you might have, please throw them in the chat. So a little bit about Helium. We were founded in 2013 with a mission to make it easier to build decentralized wireless networks. And we're now the largest public IoT network in the world. So we're getting there. We've accomplished that. And to do that, we're honored to be backed by some of the very best VC firms in the world. And we couldn't have gotten here without your help. So you see some of them listed down below there, but we really appreciate it. We're thankful for everything. And this has been an amazing journey, and we're excited to keep going. So the Helium network is incentive built. So anyone, anywhere, you, me, anybody can be rewarded for just creating wireless coverage and expanding the network. Hotspot hosts earn HNT, both for creating coverage and when their devices use hotspots to connect to the internet. So use cases, using the network is a really big thing right now. Coverage is expanding all over the world. Very easy to be rewarded for both of those things. So all of this allows an affordable nationwide wireless network to be rapidly built, as you're seeing right now. So the Helium network has a major focus on applications, not only network building. Like I said, we are the largest public IoT network in the world. Very accelerated coverage and growth. I updated this a couple days ago. We were at 175,000 hotspots in over 16,000 cities. We're almost at 200,000 now. So I can't update this page fast enough. In 124 countries, so all over the world, we also have almost 400,000 hotspots on order, so waiting to be onboarded onto the network. So it's going to just continue to grow and grow, which is really exciting. We have a very diverse ecosystem of customers and hardware makers. So hardware makers creating gateways to get onto the network, customers doing really cool things with use cases and solutions. And I'll talk a little bit more about both of those in just a second. Very low cost to get onto the Helium network and start using it. So less than $1 per sensor per year for any device sending data every 5 minutes. And then it's super easy and accessible to get on the network and start using it. You can use it with pretty much any compatible off-the-shelf LoRaWAN sensor. So it doesn't take a lot to start using the Helium network. Like I said, we have a diverse ecosystem of hardware makers. These have all been approved by the community through HIP19. A couple of them shown here: Rack, Bobcat, Synchrorbit, Nebra. More and more coming on board. And as we continue to grow, so does this list. So exciting stuff there. Same thing with the users. We're onboarding brand new users, announcing new users daily, weekly. You guys see them come on the uplinks. Lots of different really cool use cases, lots of different solutions, people making things easier for businesses, for individuals, for cities, all those types of things. And these are just a few of those users listed right here. You can check out more on the helium.com ecosystem page. I believe it might be called the Who Uses the Network page now, but look at that and see. And again, it gets updated almost daily right now. Additionally, we have a lot of new features and products coming out, including Helium Console 2.0 that launched at the end of July. And if you are a console user and you haven't checked out 2.0 at all, I'm not sure why you wouldn't have, but really cool. The new Flows workspace makes it really, really easy and intuitive to see which devices are yours, what labels they're under, what decoders you might be using, where your data is going. You can see the flow of the data. We also have a new coverage feature. You can check that out in the Helium blog, where you're able to kind of get a little bit more visibility into what your hotspots are doing and optimize hotspot placement. We have a pretty cool announcement coming out tomorrow for Console as well. So I definitely recommend checking it out. If you haven't started using Console, go to console.helium.com, get started using the network today. Again, join the movement. If you haven't already, check us out at helium.com. My email, again, I'm Jacob, the product marketing manager. It's just jacob@helium.com. If you have any questions, please shoot me an email and I will get back to you or connect you to the appropriate person. Mark Phillips is our vice president of business development. His email's right there, mark@helium.com. We're also on GitHub, on Twitter, and we have a really good Discord community, over 100,000 members now. Lots of really good resources in there, a lot of really smart people doing cool things and helping us out all the time. So if you have questions, if you just want to learn more about Helium, about everything going on with the network, check out Discord, join the community, get involved, have discussions there. All right. Hoopo and Helium. So initially Hoopo connected with Helium around 1.5 years ago. They knew of us from being active in the telematics industry, and Sefi, their vice president of sales, reached out and connected with Mark Phillips, who I just mentioned, the vice president of biz dev over at Helium. And Sefi was interested in connecting with US LoRa operators to discuss the end client solutions. And from there, it's been a happy partnership. And we're super excited to be working with Hoopo and to have them on today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tal, who's going to take us through what Hoopo does and how you can get started using Hoopo. All right.
Okay, so first of all, hi everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We're very happy to be here. My name is Tal. I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Partnerships at Hoopo. We have here with me also Ilan. He's the Vice President of Business Development and actually one of the co-founders, as well as Marco. He's the Senior Director of Sales in the US. So let's start. I'll just... And of course, as Jacob said, if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat and we'll be happy to answer them. And there will be some Q&As at the end. So a little bit about Hoopo. Hoopo is all about boosting performance through asset visibility. And of course, we'll dive a bit deeper into that. So just to give you a bit of information, Hoopo was formed in the end of 2016 with the mission to connect non-powered assets in order to boost logistic operations efficiency. And I'll explain a bit more about that. Hoopo was founded by 4 co-founders, all with vast experience in geolocation technologies and RF communication protocols, both from the special units in the Israeli army and from the high-tech industry, of course. Our headquarters are in Israel, but we do have some offices in the US as well. So since that Hoopo was founded at the end of 2016, the technology evolved over time, and today we are one of the leading global providers of power-efficient tracking technologies for non-powered assets. We're active majorly in 3 industries. One is the transportation, where we mainly track trailers and chassis. The other industry is aviation, where we help ground handling companies optimize their ground operations through ground support equipment visibility, so through tracking those assets. And the waste management industry, where we track waste containers and roll-off dumpsters, and we'll discuss about the use case a bit later. In all these different sectors, what's important to remember is that most fleet owners need better control over their non-powered assets, and we offer a simple nationwide tracking solution that creates complete visibility across the logistic operations to help the operation managers or the fleet managers make informed decisions based on real-time data. So a little bit about the Hoopo view, or as we call it, our 3 Cs. And this is also where the partnership with Helium will kind of make sense. So we talk about the first C is coverage. Of course, when you're tracking asset, coverage is one of the most important features. We are unlocking continuous asset visibility with a multi-technology sensor. So I think one of the unique features about the HoopoSense tracker is that it's a multi-technology tracker. It has multiple also location technologies and connectivity technologies to ensure reliable connectivity and no data loss. And when we're talking about just connectivity networks, of course, when there is LPWA, low power wide area IoT networks, such as LoRa or Helium, the People's Network, we use that to transmit the data from the trackers to the cloud. It's very, very cost effective and also power effective. But of course, in such cases that there is no coverage for the Helium or LoRa network, such in cases where trailers, for instance, go outside of cities and are in transit, that's where our HoopoSense trackers automatically switch to a cellular or CAT-M network to continue the continuous coverage. So I hope that was clear. Of course, ask if there's any questions. The second C, of course, is consumption. This is highly, highly, highly important when we're talking about tracking non-powered assets, which is our focus. Imagine that you're a fleet owner that has thousands or hundreds of thousands of non-powered assets, such as chassis or trailers. If your tracking device batteries need to be recharged or replaced every even week, and there's thousands of assets, then it makes the whole tracking solution non-feasible. So really power efficiency is one of the most important and features when you're tracking non-powered assets. And I think this is, again, one of our unique features is that the HoopoSense tracker are operated by sophisticated algorithms. So there's an autonomous firmware that helps trackers optimize their performance over time. And we'll discuss a bit more about that later. And the third C, which of course is also very important, is cost. When we're talking about tracking thousands of non-powered assets, yeah, it's super important to have a decent and affordable price. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense ROI perspective, and you can't track all these assets, which is important to get the operations efficiency going. Okay, so this is just an overview of the suite of IoT low power wide area technologies that we use. And just before, I want to say that it's important to remember that there's a lot of different tracking technologies and tracking solutions out there. But what's really important is to understand what you want to track, like what asset, and why you want to track it. What are the needs? What are the requirements in order to find the most suitable solution? It's usually trade-off between either accuracy, coverage, or ownership cost and power efficiency. So for instance, if you look at the graph and you look at Bluetooth, which is a technology we all know, Bluetooth is quite power efficient, but it's very, very short range. And for that reason, if you want to track assets that are in big either a parking lot or in transit, then of course Bluetooth won't be the right or the most suitable solution. So just so you can see, take a look at Hoopo, you can see the different technologies that we use. So when we're talking about location technologies, we use low power GPS, we use Wi-Fi sniffing, as well as cellular ID and our IP technology that's based on LoRa, as well as when we're talking about connectivity networks, then we're talking about the Helium network, of course, LoRa, and cellular, which is mainly LTE Cat-M. So this is a better view of the HoopoSense device that you can see a picture of it. What's amazing to know is that the HoopoSense device is operated just on 4 AA regular batteries that are easily also to replace once they're finished. But because of the different technologies, because of the sophisticated algorithms that operate the tracker, the battery life actually lasts between 5 to 10 years without the need to change or charge the batteries. Of course, there's a range because it depends on the daily amount of data transmissions. And again, there's an auto switch between the Helium People's Network and a cellular CAT-M network. So I think I mentioned all the information that's here. What's important to know also that the HoopoSense has multiple sensors inside. It has a 3D accelerometer that is a movement and motion detector. It detects tilt and impact as well, and there's a temperature sensor. Because there is a movement detector, the location data is transmitted only when new locations are registered. That's connected to the sophisticated algorithms that over time optimize the tracker's behavior according to the use case and the asset movements. So there's predefined rules that that we define with each of our customers, and according to them, the data is transmitted in order to firstly get only valuable data and not data that is not needed, and also to keep power consumption to bare minimum and expand the battery life to maximum. So just an overview of the HoopoLogic platform. The HoopoSense trackers are mounted on the asset, whether it's a chassis, whether it's a trailer or a waste container, according to the different asset movements and predefined rules. The location data is then transmitted over the Helium LoRaWAN network when it's in range. When it's momentarily out of range, again, it uses LTE Cat-M to transmit the data into the Hoopo cloud. The data is then stored and analyzed in our Hoopo secured cloud, and the actionable insights and all the analytics and reports are then presented in an easy to use web-based platform that I will show you in a few moments as well. So again, as I said, I'll show you a short demo of the dashboard, but just so you get an idea, of course, the dashboard has map visualizations of the location of the different assets. This is quite the core of it. It has summary tables, history, and analytics, as well as customized views for the different positions in the business, whether it's an executive view, driver, operator view, maintenance view, as well as of course, as alerts, and we'll go over that once we see the demo. So before we go into discussing specific use cases, just to get a better idea of our value proposition whenever we're tracking non-powered assets, so it doesn't matter in which specific industry or use case. Of course, the benefits is full visibility of the non-powered asset fleet. So you get accurate location of all your assets just through like a web-based dashboard or application. So it's very easy to quickly retrieve any assets that are needed. It helps for loss and misplacement of prevention of these assets. It helps with utilization optimization and kind of identifying idle assets or revealing bottlenecks across the operations. The partnership with Helium allows us to give fleet owners to always be covered, whether it's with the LoRaWAN network or the cellular network. And eventually all these benefits help with reducing procurement costs and operational costs. So I would like now to present a few of our typical use cases, and I will, Marco will talk about the use cases. So please, Marco.
Sounds good. Thanks, Tal. Yeah, so regarding our use cases, our typical customers are fleet owners in the markets that Tal discussed: waste management, logistics, trailers, chassis, and also airport ground support equipment. They typically have fleets in the several hundred units, all the way to to multiple thousands of units, and they have typical requirements. And you can do the next slide, Tom. So here's an example of a typical chassis or trailer customer. Their main challenges include having a need to have real-time inventory counts, some type of automated service registration. So when equipment is picked up or dropped off, they need to account for that, and again, the ability to automate that. Also, this is more of a general requirement, but utilization of assets is quite important. The ability to know how effectively a particular asset is being used throughout its life is not well understood, and the tracker can really provide a bird's eye view of utilization. And finally, when managing the fleet, either adding or subtracting equipment or reallocating equipment is always a challenge, and really can't be done unless you have data to back up the usage of the equipment. Next slide. So one of the things that we do with chassis and trailers, for example, relative to the Helium offering, is we can, as Tal mentioned, combine both LoRaWAN and cellular networks to offer a full roaming solution to these customers, because obviously their equipment is going to travel for hundreds of miles and at any given time, so that the ability to roam is quite important. But we can also provide additional capability with Helium and LoRaWAN through having, for example, a gateway at a depot or a storage yard where equipment is stored. And with that gateway installed, the equipment will know that the equipment is there, and we won't have to use a cellular network. For example, a chassis would enter a yard, it gets picked up through the LoRa or Helium network, and then we know that the location of that chassis at that time. The data gets sent up through LoRa and through the back end up to the cloud, and then we can have additional power efficiency because no GPS is involved and we're not using cellular. So we're looking forward to increasing our capabilities with customers via Helium and LoRaWAN in order to squeeze extra power efficiency out of our product. Okay. So more specifically, these customers are, again, looking to gain visibility of their fleet. Knowing where equipment is at any given time, of course, is quite important. And with our product, they'll know when a asset is picked up or dropped off immediately. And they'll also be able to get a quick inventory count of what's available in their yards, what's out in the wild and been deployed. And these are things, again, that many fleet owners don't have visibility to. So one of the unique things about chassis and trailers is, although you would think that they're connected to a truck, so the truck knows where they drop things off or where they're picked up, but these assets can sit at a warehouse for weeks or months, and the equipment is not connected to a truck all the time. So they really have to have independent tracking to be effective in terms of utilization. So obviously, with a tracker installed, you're going to eliminate manual search, and you can even take it to the next step by offering tracking information to end customers. So so our customer could offer knowledge of the location of the particular asset to the customer, so they can have better customer service. Next slide. Here's a snapshot of inventory count. So here, what we can do is very common scenario with all of our use cases is the ability to know what's inside a geofence. So in this case, a depot or a storage yard would be geofenced. And then when the tracker or the asset enters the geofence, we'll know exactly how many are in the geofence and how many are outside the geofence. And customers typically have multiple yards or locations where they want to track inventory counts. So of course, we can account for all of that with our capabilities. On the waste container side, another great market for us. Some of the challenges that they have are, again, utilization. Here, it's you know, as some of the smaller companies, as they grow, they really have a lot of trouble, believe it or not, knowing where or how effectively their equipment is utilized, how effectively their dumpsters are utilized, and also just knowing where they are and did they get dropped off at the time that it was scheduled. They're relying specifically now on drivers to take up all of that responsibility. So when a driver drops off a roll-off, they have to account for, you know, on a spreadsheet or maybe even in a mobile app, they have to manually process that and say it was dropped off at this location. So what our customers are looking for is to really automate that. And what we can do for them is with our, and we can go ahead to the next slide, Tal. With our tilt capability in our tracker, we'll know when a dumpster is, or I should say a roll-off is dropped off, because as it tilts, you know, when it's removed from the truck or dropped off from the truck, it tilts and it gets dropped off. And then we know the location at that time. All that information can be fed into the customer's legacy dispatch system. And then they have immediate and automatic notification of when a dumpster or roll-off is picked up or dropped off. So this is a pretty powerful way to take the whole logistics of managing waste containers to the next level. And of course, we can include geofences to know, you know, whether a dumpster is being dropped off at a or emptied at a landfill, or it's back at the yard for storage. So those are also very important. And additionally, go ahead to the next slide, Tom. You know, with Helium and the LoRa network, we can do the same thing, where if a gateway is installed at the customer's yard, then we'll be able to take advantage of low power geolocation as well as low power communication, and the battery consumption of the tracker will be even better. So just to give you a couple of interesting points with regard to our technology. So, for example, we talked about earlier the fact that we use multiple geolocation technologies. Of course, we have a formal GPS chip, which is, you know, very power efficient, you know, for as GPS chips go. But we also use Wi-Fi sniffing. So just to give you an idea of how that really works, or the benefit of that in a real world environment, we did a study with a customer recently to determine how many geolocations came from the GPS chip and how many locations were determined by Wi-Fi. So in this particular customer's case, it was over 30% of the locations came from Wi-Fi. So the reason that we use Wi-Fi is because Wi-Fi is a lot more power efficient than GPS. And if we can take advantage of that, we can extend our battery life. So just to give you an idea of how that could work, and really the essence of our tracker in terms of the multiple technology capabilities that we have. Yeah, and maybe I'll just add one more thing, if you can go back, Tal, with regard to battery life. We also did a study with that same customer to estimate battery life. And this was a chassis customer, by the way, where the typical movement of the chassis would allow the tracker to operate for over 6 years. without a battery change. And so that's with cell uplink. That's not even with LoRa implemented or Helium implemented. So if the customer took advantage of LoRa with gateways in their yard, for example, we could probably certainly squeeze out a little bit more life. And in the end, all of these customers, one of the key criteria, as Tal mentioned, is battery life is so important, because the cost to replace batteries or replace a tracker are astronomical. Okay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Marco. So this is just a thank you slide with also the email address. If you have any questions after, we'll go to the demo. This is just to give you an idea of how, as I said, we're all about asset visibility, and that was the mission of Hoopo when it was founded. And it really helps just to simplify very complex logistic scenarios. So I'm just gonna share with you different screens so that you can, just 1 second. Okay, so I just wanted to show you guys to get an idea of how our basic dashboard looks like. This is based, of course, on one of our clients' customers' data, but without revealing the client itself. Just an important note to keep in mind here is that while we do have our own dashboard, and that's what I'm showing you now, we also provide integration through API to integrate with existing management systems so that you can manage all your data at one place. And again, this is just an example of our standard or basic dashboard. What you see here is the current status view. The current status view, it's kind of like a snapshot of the current situation right now. Of course, on the right, you can see all the assets, the different colors or different types of assets on the map. Okay, and over here in the upper menu, it's like a summary of, again, the current snapshot. So you can see that there's 2 out of 32 assets in transit. There are 3 active alerts that we'll check what the alerts are in a second. Here you see the different assets. You see the asset type, the location, the accuracy of that location. It depends on which location technology is being used. When did the asset arrive to the location, how long it's there, and so on. The battery status, of course. And what's a nice thing as well is when you want to navigate, there's a navigate column here. You can just press this link and it will open a Google map navigation to the location of that asset. Now we saw here that we have 3 active alerts. Let's check out what's the alerts that are happening now. So the alerts are 2 of them out of the 3 is long dwell time alert. Of course, when we're talking about optimizing asset utilization, this is very important. And 1 alert is no communication. We can see this is for over 8 days the asset hasn't communicated. And of course, here you can filter the different alert and alert times as well. Different views that we have include, for instance, the location information. So here you can filter a specific location out of all the location. Let's say I'm just choosing a random one. And then you see the history of this location. You see which asset arrived and exit this location, when did they arrive, how long they were there, when they exited this location. And it's very good for trying to understand, again, the operations efficiency, optimize it, try to understand where there is bottlenecks, why there is long times in certain location, and so on. If we're talking about the asset info view, it's similar, but just from a perspective of an asset and not a location. So again, here I have the list of all the assets, but I'm just gonna choose 1 asset randomly. And again, we see now the history of that asset. So we see exactly in which locations it visited, when did it arrive, how long it stayed, when did it exit. Of course, we can filter by time, by locations, by time intervals, and so on. And the last page that I will show you now is an analytics page. So that's where the reports and analytics kind of integrate. What's important for me to let you know is that depending on the use cases, we customize these analytics to the needs of the use case and to our clients' needs. Many times it will show which assets are inside geofences, outside geofences, what are the average dwell time in certain depots. And it really depends, as I said, on the needs of that client. It's very customizable. So that's just an overview of our basic dashboard. I'm gonna stop the share right now, and just before I open it to your questions that we'll of course be happy to answer, I wanted to tell you guys that I'll be writing in the chat box also my email so that you guys can follow up if you have any additional questions. And I will also share with you a promo code that we will be offering for the Uplink participants that offers a 10% discount. What is important to keep in mind is that Hoopo is a B2B operation. It means that we do not sell just a few units to private owners, but we provide a tracking solution for businesses with fleets of over 300 units. Of course, if this is the case and if it's relevant to your business or to your fleet, then we'll be very happy to continue this discussion. So I'll be sure to write this information in the chat. In the meantime, feel free to ask questions, and we'll take a look if there's already any questions that we can answer from the chat.
Perfect. Thank you, Tal and Marco. Marco, I see you've been replying to some questions in the chat already. Are there any that you want to highlight for the rest of the group at all you think that were important?
Yeah, let's see. Somebody asked if there were any input-output capabilities on the tracker. So there aren't. It's a closed tracker. It provides location and tilt and temperature capability, but there's no ability to interface it with external sensors, at least at this point. And then somebody was asking if a non-internet connected Wi-Fi hotspot can act as a beacon. So this is kind of an interesting question and actually very intuitive question from Paul. So because we're using Wi-Fi, we termed it Wi-Fi sniffing. There's also Wi-Fi whitelisting, which is slightly different for geolocation. So the Wi-Fi, our connection to a Wi-Fi hotspot is entirely to pick up, only to pick up the MAC address and to learn where that Wi-Fi hotspot is in terms of a geolocation. We don't use it to connect to the internet. We just pick up the MAC address and we use either our own capabilities to determine the physical location of that hotspot, or we use Google services to determine if it's a publicly listed Wi-Fi hotspot. Google will tell us where that Wi-Fi hotspot is.
All right, it looks like we got a couple new questions in here. One from Neo asking, do you also offer the host devices if the trackers use the Helium network to get the position, or just client hardware to be installed in the trucks?
Yeah. So the trackers use a yes.
Yeah,
position.
Marco, I think if you're using the Helium network, then you don't need anything else but the tracker.
Yeah.
So if the question refers to other networks, then usually it's if you will combine the helium with the cellular, then again, you will not need any other means. So you will just receive the data which is in the cloud after it went through either helium network or the cellular. So I hope this answers the question.
Perfect. Thank you, Elon. Keith asked, he said he may have missed it, but does this offer end-to-end encryption for packet transfer?
Yes, definitely. When we work with the helium network is encrypted by the LoRa standards.
Right. I know that Mohammed, and we've had a couple questions about frequency compatibilities. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we have our data sheet has a long list of compatible frequencies, so we'd be happy to send that off to anybody that gets in touch with us.
Regarding the question of the camera for viewing drivers, that we do not offer. Our trackers are not, or the tracking solution is not based on a camera. It's important to understand that camera or footage need a very, how do you say,
high bandwidth.
Yeah, high bandwidth.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for. While our tracking solution is quite on the opposite of the use case and needs. So we transmit small pieces of data, like location coordinates, for instance, but over very wide ranges and on very, very little power consumption, while video or footage are a high power consumption for shorter range regarding the network. And just before we continue to answer,
maybe I'll elaborate a little bit on that, because there's no magic here. It's not a perpetuum mobile. The reason we can get years of operation without replacement of the batteries is because we use smart algorithms, but also, and we use the most efficient method to locate as well as to communicate. But again, it's also because the data rate which is needed for such applications is very low. Both if we use the cellular, we always use the data network of the cellular, which is less demanding. And of course, if we use the helium network, then it's very low on power.
Yeah, and thank you, Ilan. Regarding another question that was asked about tracking a car, for instance, again, currently, two things. Currently, we do not offer our solution for private one asset consumers, but it's more of a business tracking for solution for larger fleets. And another thing that's important for me to highlight is, again, if we talked about the slide that there's a lot of different tracking technologies for different tracking use cases and needs, there are different tracking needs for when you're tracking motorized assets, such as a car, such as a truck, such as a tractor. Usually, first of all, you would like different features, like sometimes the speed or the fuel consumptions that are not monitored for non-powered asset. But the most important thing is that when you have powered assets, such as the truck or the tractor, you can just plug in the tracker into the power of that asset. So really, in a way, power efficiency is not such a crucial feature that dictates the technology, such as when you're tracking non-powered assets, which is our focus, Hoopo's focus.
All right. Do you guys see those last couple of questions there? Paul's asking, what's the geolocation accuracy? Whoops, I'm typing. With maybe 3 to 4 nearby Wi-Fi beacons.
Okay, should I take it? Okay. It really depends on the use case, but let's talk generally. Generally, we get to GPS accuracies. As we said, we use GPS. We can also use native LoRa location, which can get to a few meters, or let's call it again GPS accuracies. If there is a need, we can also use beacons, which can get you a higher accuracy, but only on special locations. And if we're using Wi-Fi sniffing, then it will be a little bit less accurate than the GPS. So it really depends on the use case.
And whoever in the audience would like us to send you the data, the spec sheet of our tracker, you can also just leave your email in the chat, and I'll be sure to follow up on that, or contact us through the emails that I've written in the chat.
Perfect. All right, we're about out of time here. I see a few more questions coming through, but like Tal said, she put her email and I think a couple other emails in the chat in there, so you guys can contact the Hoopo team through those emails. I'm going to pull up the slide one more time. If you want to contact Helium, myself, Mark Phillips, find us on GitHub, Twitter, or Discord. Other than that, I'd like to thank everyone for coming today. I really want to thank the Hoopo team, Tal, Elon, and Marco, for being here. I know that people still have questions. So again, send those to Hoopo or over to us at Helium. And then McKenna put this in the chat already, but this recording will go up on the Helium YouTube channel probably in the next 24 hours or so. So if you missed any part of it, you can go back and watch that. And again, thanks everyone for being here. This was a lot of fun. Thank you, Hoopo. I appreciate it. And we'll see everyone next time.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.